Even though Councilman Tigert tried to work on our time schedule, we're right on schedule. Before we go into our agenda, I want to thank those folks who made an effort to come to the breakfast that we had at the Planning Commission last week and meet with Ms. Jones talking about the redevelopment of corridors. We're going to have another one of those breakfast meetings coming up on Monday, April the 22nd. This will be with Bill Fulton, who is the Vice President and Director of Policy Development and Implementation for Smart Growth America. And his topic will be infrastructure and smart growth. And he is going to talk specifically about the challenges of maintaining and financing infrastructure. And so certainly that's, if you saw the Tennessean article this past Sunday, was talking about the challenge that we have in Davidson County and the surrounding areas as far as our infrastructure is concerned, and the needs that are rapidly coming to a point of needing some attention. So I think this will be informational to you. It will be from 7:30 to 9 at the Sunny West Auditorium. Again, that's on Monday, April the 22nd. So I hope that you'll put that on your calendar if you can do so. We have several items on our agenda today. These have been administratively approved or approved by the Planning Commission. I will read through the consent agenda, and we will vote on that at one time unless there is an item to be pulled off. I do have a deferral that we will deal with separately. And so as we begin this consent agenda, we'll pull Bill 2012-292 off. I think we need to talk about that before we take an action on it. So with those exceptions, BL 2013-405, sponsor is Moore, Matthews, and Claiborne, an ordinance approving a sublease agreement between Metro and STEM Preparatory Academy. This was administratively approved on April the 4th. I do have, Council Lady is here. BL 2013-406, sponsor is Gilmore and Matthews. I have a letter for approval. This was administratively approved on March 21st. An ordinance approving a lease agreement between Metro, acting by and through the Metro Parks Board, and MDHA for a portion of the bridge building. BL 2013-407, sponsor is Todd, Gilmore, and Matthews. An ordinance approving the acceptance of a donation of real property from CRLP Bellevue LLC and Colonial Properties Incorporated for use as part of the park system. Administrative approval was given on February the 26th. BL 2013-409, sponsor Allen, Potts, and Claiborne. An ordinance approving the abandonment of approximately 1,320 feet of sewer main and an associated easement on property located at 2014 Bernard Circle. Administrative approval on February the 11th. BL 2013-393, sponsor is Pride Moore, an ordinance to amend the zoning code by changing from CS to SP zoning properties located at 1119 Old Hickory Boulevard and Old Hickory Boulevard unnumbered to permit automobile repair and wrecker service. And this was approved by the Planning Commission with conditions by a vote of 8-0 on February the 14th. BL 2013-394, sponsor is Claiborne, an ordinance to amend section 17.08.030 of the zoning code pertaining to community education uses for modifying which zoning districts community education uses are permitted. And this was approved by the Commission by a vote of 8-0 on February the 14th. And those are the items on our consent agenda. Are there any of those that we need to pull? Do I have a motion? Motion made and seconded. Those in favor? Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. BL 2013-408, sponsor is Moore, an ordinance to amend the official street and alley map by abandoning alley number 1800 right-of-way and easement. There is a request to defer one meeting. Do I have a motion? Second? Motion made and seconded to defer BL 2013-408 one meeting. Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. BL 2012-292, sponsor Barry, Stein, and others, an ordinance amending the zoning code by amending section 17.04.060 and 17.16.250 pertaining to recording studios as an accessory use in residential districts. This was approved by the Planning Commission on November the 8th by a vote of 7-4, 1 against. And the sponsor is here, and we have, there are several amendments that are being proposed to this. So, Council Lady Berry, would you like to speak to this before we discuss?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you letting me speak before the committee. You may remember back in November this was proposed, and we had a public hearing where some issues were raised, and we have gone back and worked with the neighborhoods and with the musicians to come up with a bill that I think is acceptable to those parties, and that is done with the amendments that we have in front of you. I will let Councilmember Claiborne speak to the two amendments that he has, but I will happily take you through the two amendments that are proposed. That would be amendment number 3. That is a reduction in size to 25% of the total combined floor area of the principal structure and an accessory structure for the home studio. This was a way to make neighbors feel more confident that this is not a commercial operation, that only 25% of the home can be used. The second one, which is amendment number 4, limits the amount of traffic and individuals coming in and off the site per day to make sure that it is at 8. We originally actually started at 10, and we've taken that number down with neighborhood input. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know you have some amendments, so if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay. There have, since we had our last meeting, I've had 2 or 3 contacts from neighborhood-related individuals who have raised questions about this process. And there was a lot of work, I think, that the council lady did with the recording industry. I'm not sure the degree to which neighborhoods were involved in this.
They've been involved.
But there are still a lot of questions that are unanswered as far as some of the neighborhood groups, especially in my side of the county at least. One of the big things that is being questioned was the number of vehicles. And so reducing to 8 vehicles, but still the concern was that in a traditional neighborhood area, there are very few driveways that are large enough to accommodate 10 cars or even 8 cars. And also the concern was that if they could park on either paved or gravel pavement, that gravel, especially if it's close to the road, has a way of getting out onto the road and causing issues as gravels fly up and get thrown against windshields or people that are walking by.
They're not doing donuts.
Pardon?
They're not doing donuts.
Well, they're not doing donuts, but you don't
Anyway,
have to be.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to be driving very fast to run over a piece of gravel and have it flick up. The maximum size area, and so the current code requires a no more than 25% and a maximum of 500 square feet. And so your amendment is to go to 25%, but it doesn't address any maximum size.
Correct.
So a house, a residence with 4,000 square feet, you could have a 1,000-foot recording studio. Mm-hmm. And even if it were larger, the studio could go even larger. Mm-hmm. The concern has been expressed over how this code change would bring homeowners associations that have restrictive covenants into conflict with the code.
And the HOA, And HOAs supersede this. So if you have an HOA that prohibited a recording studio, just like an HOA might prohibit any other part of the code, then you would not be able to have a recording studio as part of your HOA. That would be, the HOA supersedes whatever this is.
Mr. Cooper, is that true of any condition in Metro?
Well, I mean, the HOA's restrictive covenants could not be less stringent than the Metro Code, and they could not prohibit activity that, is otherwise protected. I mean, First Amendment issues and who property can be sold or rented to, that kind of thing. But as it relates to use of property, the HOA restrictive covenants would trump, so to speak, the
Metro Code?
Metro zoning code. However, Metro does not enforce restrictive covenants. Those are enforced by and among the homeowners.
Right. Those are some of the questions that have come to me, and I had promised that I would raise those questions during this committee meeting. Are there...
Councilman Claiborne, can you just, I think that you have two amendments too, if you don't mind just highlighting what those are too,
yes.
Thank you.
One of the amendments that is in the amendment package is would be to limit the presence of the recording studio or the effect of this particular bill to the urban zoning
Overlay district?
Overlay district, right, thank you. Which is a sizable area that includes all of the downtown area, extends out into a major part of East Nashville and down to the south and also out to the west. The Second Amendment would specify, even though it is assumed, but it specifies that if this bill passes, that these businesses would be required to have a business license before they would be considered legitimate.
And Councilman Claiborne, I just wanted to give you some feedback because I've obviously circulated some of the amendments in general to the folks who've been involved in this conversation. And the folks in the music industry and some of the neighborhood associations that I've been in touch with are not in support of limiting this. What the musicians tell me is that these are all over Nashville. They're not just in one part. So you have just as many in Bellevue and Jolton as you might have in Belmont or East Nashville. So I just wanted to put that out there. Absolutely, they are absolutely in support of amendment number 2. They absolutely believe that a business license is part of the process, and they would absolutely support that.
All right, Councilman Glover.
Yeah, Mr. Cooper, just a quick question. In the event the HOA, and I think this goes to some of the other bills that we passed over the last year or so, if the HOA is restrictive of them being able to do it, the HOA will be fully responsible for any legal battle that may ensue, correct? Okay, thank you.
Councilman Bedney.
Yeah, it's a question for Mr. Cooper as well. So in my district, most of the, I circulated this legislation. I was very curious because we have many good musicians, I think, in District 31. And so I have been lucky or not to hear them play their music from time to time. And so I was curious to know how will this impact the different neighborhoods. And everybody that contacted me lives within an HOA type situation. So I was very happy when I learned from the sponsor that indeed the HOA rules will trump this. And I didn't get any emails from people that live outside an HOA. Now, the question for Mr. Cooper is there any, I guess I mean, you just said that the city won't enforce this. But if we're requiring them to be licensed, for example, let's say this passes, will that give the city will that give the HOA a tool to get the city to enforce something within the subdivision, some way to create some pressure to help the HOA bring somebody into compliance?
Well, the restrictive covenants are private contractual matters between the homeowners. So legally, the government cannot enforce those. Those are enforceable only among those who are subject to those restrictions. So, I mean, if there was a violation of the Metro Code, then yes, Metro Codes could get involved and work with the HOA. But if it's purely violation of a restrictive covenant, then the government would have no recourse.
But if they have to pull a license of some sort, that will give the HOA a tool to act on that, perhaps to...
Right, I mean, they could ask and say, hey, you could ask the county clerk, are there any business licenses issued in my neighborhood, for example?
Mm-hmm. So that will give some leverage to the HOA.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just running through these and being over in East Nashville, I've got minimal in the urban zoning overlay, and I'm mostly outside as well. I know Peter and these guys are more in the overlay, but I can't support that. Just thinking, just with all these parts of the counties that are going to want to have recording studios. We did kind of the same thing with the urban chickens as well. You know, just opting out certain areas, that sort of thing. So I'm going to urge. I think the other amendments are great. I like the business license idea. I like the 25%, and I like the fourth one as well, with the compromise for 8 visits a day. But I just think we should probably recommend to the full council disapproval of the urban zoning overlay amendment. Thank you.
Well, it's not, I mean, we'll not vote on the amendments.
Oh, okay.
It's not necessary to vote on amendments in committee process. They can be brought from the floor, but appreciate your comment. Councilman Davis.
I just wanted to remind us, I mean, we all love Music City, and this bill reinforces our brand, which is very important. And you got to forgive me for the marketing lingo, but I'm in full support of legislation. I like a lot of the amendments. I understand that we can bring those amendments to the floor. We can talk about it then. But I just want to remind folks, you know, what this city was built on. It was about the music, and there's hundreds of recording studios here that are looking forward to this legislation being passed. I just want to thank Mr. President there for your hard work in looking at this. I want to thank Councilor at Large Megan Berry for championing this cause. And I've heard from a lot of folks in my district that have recording studios, and we've talked about it at our neighborhood association meetings. Cleveland Park, we talked about it. Highland Heights, we talked about it. And also, more importantly, Maxwell Heights. And I have, at the Dickersboro Merchants Association, I have about 7 neighborhood associations I go to on a monthly basis. So this was spoken about, and there is a lot of support for this. And I just want to thank you for bringing that forward. I want to thank the council for looking into this, and I look forward to voting for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I would just respond to you. You know, Nashville is a healthcare center also. In fact, I think the healthcare industry is number 1. And using the logic that has been expressed about having this because this is Music City, we could use the same logic and say that a nurse practitioner or a doctor who is approaching retirement could very easily seek zoning exception to allow for a neighborhood clinic in a neighborhood area. Be very convenient. Just walk down the street, get your flu shot. As long as he's meeting health standards, there would be no reason. So, you know, we're opening a door to lots of possibilities by setting a precedent here. That's my concern. And I think that's a concern of a lot of the folks that I represent in District 15. People who live in neighborhoods because they want to be away from commercial activity. People who want to be close to commercial activity move close to neighborhoods that are close to or bordering commercial activity. And so when we begin to change the nature of our traditional neighborhoods, we're going down a path that seems to me to be detrimental in the long term. Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, and I'm trying to pull it up on my computer here to find, I guess, a better definition of the urban zoning overlay district to sort of help me figure that out. That was sort of a broader explanation earlier. I assume you're not talking about the urban services district.
If you go to the Planning Commission's website, the interactive maps, down a good ways down toward the bottom of that list, there is a map that shows the footprint of the overlay district.
Okay, I'll take a look. The site's a little slow today. Thanks.
It's
Councilman?
a good rule of thumb is that it's basically the old city limits of Nashville prior to 1963.
Okay. Councilman Bedning. Wait a minute. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Another question for Mr. Cooper. So following up on what I said before, is there a way that when somebody wants to pull one of those licenses to open one of these recording studios, that they need to verify that the HOA permits one of these?
No, we would not be able to ask that question or deny a permit on that basis.
Is that based on the way it's written now, or there's no way to do it, period?
It's based on common law that those are contractual in nature as opposed to the Metro Code. So we could not deny a permit because a homeowner might be in violation of a private contract, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good.
Well, can I actually ask a question about that? Because I mean, a lot of times HOAs have covenants on what color you can paint your house. And so you agree to that. So it would be like saying to Home Depot, you couldn't sell the paint to them because it would be the wrong color. Home Depot is not going to get into the business of regulating what color paint can be purchased. Is that kind of equivalent?
Councilman Glover?
Council Lady Berry, I think the intent of this is to legitimize the industry because in some of the work that I do, I mean, there's these studios everywhere.
Correct.
I mean, they literally are. You can go down and buy an iBook and you've got a recording studio in your house. So I take it's to legitimize the industry. And then also in that legitimizing of the industry, it will require under one of the amendments here that a business license be bought and that it be run like a business. The one thing I don't get quite as hung up on the 8-car thing or 8-person thing is because now so much stuff is done electronically and emails, et cetera, and sent that way. But was that the ultimate reason for why this legislation was introduced?
Correct. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Councilman Holloman? Okay, the board is.
Am I on? I'm on.
Yeah, the board's sensitive today.
I understand. Council Lady Berry, and I apologize, I came in a little bit late, but I think I raised this to you when you first filed the bill. I have a lot of questions from people in my district that have other professional backgrounds and licenses, lawyers, CPAs, seamstress, that have 1 or 2 clients at a time, probably, frankly, no more than 1 or 2 people a week that come in, and the distinction as to why we should move forward with this and allow this one particular industry to have up to 8 cars, higher volume than what was turned down by the last council for other professionals. I mean, help me understand that distinction, because I'm having a hard time saying we should sanction it for this one group. I mean, maybe we're Music City, maybe that's the reason, but that's hard for me to say to a lawyer who wants to have one person come into his home and sign a will and is told that's illegal. So help me understand why you didn't come back with something that is more broad in terms of home occupations, as opposed to just saying we're going to treat the music industry differently.
Thank you, Councilman Holloman. I think you were on the council when we did try to pass that last time, and it wasn't successful. And I don't think it would be under this council either. And so I think this we can pass. This is outside. If you look at,
frankly, that's not a distinction to me. I mean, what I want to understand is why would we allow these rules to be applied differently to one industry as opposed to another? I mean, because as I understand it, it's not because we hate lawyers, I hope, or seamstresses, or bakers, or whoever it is.
Sure.
It was because of concerns about traffic, and this is actually more intensive from a traffic standpoint, or really any of the standpoints. I mean, while I know that we can have a soundproof room, I'm pretty sure that an accountant is soundless. So how is it that we should draw this line as opposed to looking at what works for other professions?
Sure, I think that I think a couple of folks have highlighted the fact that these are really prevalent throughout our current county. I think that this is Music City, and I think that we can take this opportunity to legitimize these businesses. And I think if there's a hope or a desire to do that for other businesses, then I would say, that's another conversation, and I'm happy to have that with you. I would like to
Would you support that? Because I don't think you supported it last time.
Actually, it never got to a vote
Yeah, it did.
No, it didn't. It went down. He withdrew it on second reading.
No.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we can look about that.
You can look it up. I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, I think from your perspective, will you support this?
Well, not individually, no, because
Okay.
I can't draw this distinction.
Then I would say bring a bill from your perspective that you would support that would address the constituents that you need to help with.
Let me also add this. Your co-sponsor told me on the last reading that this was not going to be brought back for third, so it sounds like something changed. And as a result of that...
I can't speak to what my co-sponsor said, but I'm happy to go get him. The intent has always been to pass this.
Okay, well, my understanding was that it was not going to move forward on third, so I guess my question is, if we're going to move forward on third tomorrow night, I've had people raise questions to me about this, and based on what the co-sponsor said, I told them that it wasn't moving forward.
Can you hold that thought?
I'd be happy to.
Sure.
We can move on.
Okay. Councilman Glover, are you still, did you have another question?
No, my button should be off.
Okay. Was there, okay, Councilman Todd, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll jump in though and just say that what Councilman Holloman says to me makes some sense. And I've talked to the council lady.
Councilman Todd, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I was trying to find my co-sponsor because I wanted to make sure that he was clear to what the.
And I've told you I'm leaning to supporting this.
Yeah, thank you.
But my problem still is intellectually, it doesn't make any sense to carve out one, to do this and not do it for beauticians or do it for accountants or do it for, it doesn't really make any sense. And I worry that the city could be exposed to litigation. We could be, sued for giving an advantage to one group over another group and it starts to, but I know you've worked hard on this, and I want to support you, but
Thank you.
I've got,
John.
it makes no sense, and Councilman Holloman is exactly right. But I don't want to get into that fight again this year.
You've been cut off.
My district is strongly against having businesses in the residential area. So, I want to explore offline with Councilman Claiborne about, I want to look at a map and see what the overlay would be for the urban area. But Councilman Holloman, jump back in there.
Well,
so Councilman Todd, I just got clarification from Mr. Cooper, because I know that Forest Hills, as you were saying, I think, which is a large portion of yours, it will be trumped by any, correct, yeah, exactly, thanks.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say, I mean, I would like to clear up, I mean,
Sure,
Councilman Stein told me expressly this was not coming back on 3rd.
Yeah, I'll definitely, I mean,
so
again, I can't speak for him because he
I
didn't
would
say
like
that
to
to
ask,
me.
I understand, well, that's odd, because okay, whatever. I would like to, I hope that we will defer this tomorrow night, because I would like to take this up with my constituents, which I've not done.
Okay, well, my intention is to bring this tomorrow, and but I'm happy to talk about what issues that you may have with your
Here's exactly the
constituents.
issue that I have. The issue that I have is that this would treat one type of home occupation differently than other types of home occupations.
Okay.
And I think there's some concern from people that are maybe a little less glamorous, accountants, lawyers, a seamstress, bakers, whoever, that we should treat everyone the same and not differently. And that if we can do this and agree upon some rules that work, whatever your business is, that should be our focus. And if we're not going to do that, then I would at least like to inform my constituents, and I'd like to have a reason as to why musicians should be treated differently. I don't think the idea that people are already doing this in their home is the reason, because I could, I guess if I wanted to out them, tell you people from any one of those other professions that do that in their home right now. I need some kind of distinction, and at a minimum, I would like the opportunity to talk about this with my constituents, because like I said, it was expressly represented to me. The reason I didn't vote no last time was it was expressly represented to me that this wasn't coming back on 3rd.
Okay. Well, again,
And I apologize. I just assumed when you were referenced specifically that you would have that discussion, because that's how it was told to me.
The point you make about other businesses, when Councilman Jameson was bringing this forward in the last council session, he provided each member of the council at that time a list of the businesses that they had in their individual districts, and there were numerous. And so I agree that, carving one group out and making them different is unfair to all the other groups. Councilman Glover.
Well, I obviously wasn't here at the last session, but I believe you're bringing some very legitimate concerns. And as a small business owner in Davidson County myself, I have a commercial building I'm in, et cetera. But I think we're all kidding ourselves if we don't think this is going on throughout the county by one-person shops or one and two people shops. And so from that standpoint, I hadn't really considered that because I was not here for the last discussion. But I do think that is a legitimate point, that how do we differentiate between business A versus business B?
And I have asked Mr. Cooper, who has clarified with the assessor's office. I actually was looking at if this is going to be a legitimate commercial use in a residential property, that it should be taxed at a commercial rate the same way that, say, daycares are. And the clarification was that a daycare there's no residence there, that is a full use of that property, and that the assessor's office doesn't have the ability to tax one property in a dual way, according to the use. So, but, in another vein, we are gradually eroding our commercial tax base as more and more people move to their residence to have the kind of businesses that we're talking about. They may have a legitimate business license, but they're paying a residential tax rate on a commercial business that they're operating in that residential property. Councilman Holloman.
I just want to say in response to Councilman Glover, I voted for this last time. I think that there is a place to do this under certain parameters. I just don't know how to say to somebody that prepares 2 or 3 taxes a year, you can't have a single car come to your house to sign tax papers once a year, but musicians, they get to have 8. I don't know how to say that. And so it's an equity issue to me. And I'm not comfortable letting one through the gate with not even an explanation as to what the distinction is, other than maybe one's a little more high profile than the others.
Councilman Claiborne, we have planning here. I think you read the vote. You said that planning overwhelmingly supported this. I think the vote was 7-4, 1 against, and I'm going to go out on a limb and guess who the one was.
I confess,
yeah,
in fact,
I figured.
it was on the consent agenda at planning.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who pulled it off because I thought it deserved a conversation.
Sure.
And it had a very cursory conversation.
Well, can I ask
It was
planning?
very, very brief.
Sure.
It
Can I
was not
ask
an
planning
in-depth.
to say why they were in support? Also, I think that would be helpful to have that data point.
Planning supported this because it was, it's looking at the larger picture of having a diverse economy and allowing different businesses to operate out of their houses, probably what is going to be consistent with the long-term of how the businesses will evolve and how land use will evolve over time in the city. So I think they were kind of looking at it more from the macro level than the micro level but they also did support the previous bill that allowed a lot more uses, a lot more home occupation uses within homes as well. So it was consistent, even though this was only one use, it was consistent with what they recommended previously as well.
Thank you.
Councilman Pridemore?
Yes, sir. I apologize. I came in during the discussion of the districts of where it will be allowed. I heard something about only in the urban services district.
I have an amendment that I would offer the urban zoning overlay district, which is basically, it's smaller, much smaller than the USD. It's basically the way that the city was in 1963 when Metro came in.
Your amendment.
Yes.
And also to planning. So this is consistent with the Nashville Next, the 2040 plan that the Planning Commission is.
Well, I mean, the Nashville Next, that plan's still in the works. That has not been adopted, but it is consistent with the current general plan and the current direction that the policies that the Planning Commission has adopted.
So you would seem that they would be in approval of this in years to come.
Well, I'm not gonna speak for future decisions, but I would think so.
Thank you.
The zoning overlay district would eliminate a large portion of the larger suburban communities that were part of the county.
And because I think you mentioned that you'd come in late, I just wanted to tell you that the feedback that I have received on that particular amendment was not supported by the folks who actually do a lot of this, because a lot of those facilities are all over the county. They're not in just one place.
Councilman Davis, Anthony Davis.
Yeah, just real quick, I think Councilman Holloman and Todd's points are very valid, very fair. I'll just say I think I'm still supporting in that I just think we're kind of dipping a toe in with the music industry, and I think it's a really good way to do that. And then one other thing too is we already have the daycare home. I had to go through this crazy process with that, but you can actually do the home-based daycare up to a few kids currently, and then I think to get to 8, we had to go through the BZA. Correct me if I'm wrong, person from planning. So there is a slight precedent there for a home-based business doing this daycare home deal. There's full-on daycare where you got to operate commercially and that sort of thing. I think the daycare home, are they taxed residentially? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, same way that this would be.
Yeah, so still taxed residentially. They're able to have up to a certain amount of kids. And then to get more kids, they've got to go through a BZA process and that sort of thing. So there's a slight gotcha there with the daycare home, but I get there's definitely some valid points here. I think this is good discussion related back to the home-based business bill, but I think we're doing the right thing here. And again, when it comes to the floor, I recommend we disapprove the one amendment and approve the 3 others and roll forward. Thank you.
One of the questions that I had that I will ask the sponsor here was in order to provide for a larger outreach to some of the neighborhoods that haven't been involved in this, would you consider using the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Office or the Planning Department's neighborhood list to at least have one or two sessions for input before moving forward here.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm happy to consider it. I will tell you that all council members have, I know, done their own outreach to their neighborhoods, which is traditionally the way this is supposed to happen, where if a council member wants to bring it out to their neighborhoods, I know they have. I've also been in touch with other neighborhoods who have brought their issues to me. I'm happy to continue to have the conversation. We have had this going on since November. It's not a surprise. The whole point of taking that break, I think when we deferred this in February, was so that council members could reach out specifically to their neighborhoods, which I know as Council Member Davis, highlighted that he has done, and I know other council members have done too. I'm happy to continue to talk to you about what that looks like. Obviously you have already reached out to your neighborhood as well.
They actually reached out to me.
There was some communication between you.
Right.
So, I'm happy to continue to think about it.
Well, that would, there are a number of things. Councilman Holloman has raised some questions about how he gets an answer to be able to respond to his neighborhood. So if there was an open forum where the neighborhoods could come and at least have dialogue and be able to have input, to listen to those explanations, then at least we've got a level ground, where we don't have some neighborhoods that have been reached out to and some that haven't been reached out to. It would also give a time to look at other possible tweaks to this, such as the size, to put back in, or to have this bill mirror what the current code is. 25% of the space, or a maximum of 500 square feet. As opposed to just leaving the square footage wide open.
Well, it's 25% is what, it's not wide open.
Less than 12.
Well, it's, like I said earlier, if you have a 4,000 square foot house, you've got a 1,000 foot recording studio.
Right.
Possibility.
Right.
So if you have a 10,000 foot house,
Right.
you've got a studio bigger than some that are out on Music Road. So would you consider deferring?
Councilmember, I'm going to have to think about it. As I said, we have been in this conversation now for 6 months. I have had a lot of conversations with council members. I'll have to think about it.
Okay.
Can I just say on that, I hate to put you on the spot, but I need to go home and send emails to my neighborhood association if you're going to put this up tomorrow night, because like I said, I don't know how the miscommunication occurred, but your co-sponsor specifically told me that you weren't moving forward tonight. So if you're going to put it up for a vote, I would like to know.
Well, I think you should go ahead and reach out to your neighbors to start getting that input, and then we'll figure out tomorrow what we're going to do.
Okay, I'll do that. Second question, I would like to hear from the committee, because I didn't hear any real substantive basis for a difference between this occupation and other occupations. If there's someone on the committee that opposes an amendment that would just treat all small businesses the same, I'd like to hear that distinction now if we could, because I'm inclined, if we do defer it, to just bring an amendment to treat everybody the same. So if anybody sees a reason not to do it that way, please let me know.
Councilman Todd?
Councilmember, it would have to be a new bill, Councilman Holloman, because the caption does not allow for an amendment.
Oh, did you keep the caption too narrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
You would have to have a new bill.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. And I know we're starting to beat this to death, but I look around the room and I do see 8 or 9 council members that weren't here last term. And just real quickly, this ended up being a big issue. And if you think about it, this is really one of the most important issues for your district, because if you go around and talk to your constituents, their biggest asset is their home. That's at least I would think in almost every district that your most valuable piece of property is your home. And Nashville, right now, like most cities, it kind of breaks into 2 groups. You either can have a safe harbor and have home businesses, or you can have what 8 or 10 very prominent large cities across the country have, and I would call that scheme, don't ask, don't tell. and it actually works pretty well. In that in my district, I know for a fact I have women who teach swim lessons. I have people who do piano lessons, but they don't have the statutory right to do that. They do that at the will of their neighbors because they don't bother their neighbors. If you're teaching piano lessons in your home, an older woman doing that for neighborhood kids, she's respectful because if she knows if she's too brazen with it, you have the right to stop her. If we create safe harbors in our statute for people to have home businesses, they can do it to the full extent of the language in the statute. If it says 10 cars, they can have 10 cars. If you call them up and say, I only want you to have 4 cars, they can say, no, I have a statutory right to park 10 cars in my driveway. I have a statutory right to have a sign. I know Megan's bill right now does not allow signs, but they're going to want signs. They're going to want to communicate. They're going to want to have a web page. You've got to decide. In all these districts, everybody's districts are different. Mine is, I don't have one commercial business in my district. And I know some of you have half and half. And some, the planning department, you have a vision for having, commercial downstairs and residential upstairs, and that works in certain places. But this is a hot topic. Megan and I have worked on this, and we tried to carve out one little thing here. But Jason's right. It doesn't make intellectual sense. And I haven't decided how I'm going to vote on this. I do think that, in fairness, if one of the co-sponsors has said we're not going to bring this up, then we shouldn't bring it up tomorrow night. I think this is a huge bill. It could bleed over like Jason's already proposed an amendment to allow all small businesses. Then it becomes one of the bigger matters we'll deal with this session. So it's extremely complicated. And Megan, you've done a great job shepherding this along. You've listened to everybody, so no fault to you, but it is a very complicated matter. And for those of you who weren't here last term, it was one of the bigger issues we had.
Councilman Scott Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The gentleman from West Nashville brings up a good point. I am still in support of the bill. I am willing to look at a separate bill allowing small businesses to be utilized in the urban core. However, though, I do have some of the same fears as Councilman Todd about this bleeding over. But more importantly, the music industry, and like we have in our district, everybody may have a couple in their district. My district personally, I have a lot of these because being in the urban core and in other areas in Nashville. But mainly right now, and I cannot speak for the co-sponsor, her co-sponsor. However we move on this for the music industry and just for the home recording studios, I'm more than fair to look at both sides of the issue. However, though, I'm going to be encouraging the movement of this bill. If there could be something that's worked out between both of you, today or tomorrow or whoever, if the sponsor decides to defer it, I will support her decision. However, I'm all for more dialogue, and I'm asking for this bill to be moved forward.
Councilman Glover, did you have another comment?
No, my light's not on.
No? Okay. Councilman Holloman.
I'd just like to make a motion to defer one meeting on the basis that that's what I was told, and I would hope that would be received friendly by the sponsor. I don't know of any urgency. We've had this on the books since November, so if there's a reason that we can't do it one more meeting, I'd be happy to hear it.
Okay, a motion to
Councilman.
defer one meeting. Do I have a second?
Councilman, I can't defer. I can't second it because I'm not on this committee.
No.
But if my co-sponsor told you that he was not going to move forward with this on third reading, then my apologies. I don't think that's been communicated to anybody else. And
You and I and he can talk about it.
Yeah, obviously. But if you were told that, then obviously I want to give you as much time as you need for your constituents so you can communicate to them. And so I would happily defer tomorrow for one meeting because of that miscommunication.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to defer one meeting and a second. Did you have...
So the committee is then deferring. We're not asking the committee then is making the recommendation to defer one meeting, correct?
Motion's been made
Okay.
and seconded, so we are we're voting then to recommend deferral one meeting. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's 9 for, 1 against. Okay, 3, 4. 6 for, 4 against. All right, that concludes our agenda. Thank you.